again, and welcome to the Author Roundup. This special segment of the Book Connection Show showcases emerging indie authors who join us for a discussion of their newly published books. Join us for a conversation with our next guest author. My name is Emma, and I will be your host for this episode. Today, I have with me author Herbert Laffey. Mr. Laffey is retired from a career in education. He now has time to write lots of books. His latest book is called Through the Babble, the Bible handbook for rigorous classroom instruction. Comes from his upbringing first as a Methodist, then as a Catholic, changing perspectives while moving through formal biblical studies. Hi, Mr. Laffey. How are you today?
Hi, good morning, Emma. Thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So your book came out last year, towards the end of last year. Is this your first book that you've published?
It's actually the second book that I published, but the first one is no longer in print.
Okay, gotcha. And so can you tell us a little bit about your book, please?
Okay, well, the Bible is a very important book. Obviously, it impacts our culture so much. It's a topic of discussion every day. It's the, for a lot of people, it's the center of their devotional life.
Hmm.
So, it might seem a bit pretentious that I could have anything, um, to add to the conversation. But I'm really happy with this book, and I feel that anyone who reads my book will really never see the Bible the same as they did before.
Hmm. Okay. And so your book has, such a bold premise. What inspired you to write this book?
Well, it's been the work of a lifetime. As you mentioned, my upbringing in both religious traditions, and
Right.
I was an altar boy in the Catholic Church as a child. I was very traditional as far as my beliefs, and I grew up in a military family. Both my parents were veterans, so
Mhm.
I'm also politically conservative by my background. But as I pursued, you know, I guess I was really inspired when I was in college because I met a group of people in the Catholic youth community who were, very loving, and I just appreciated so much being with them in their community. And I remember one time we were discussing sex outside of marriage. And, like I was adamant, like the Bible, explicitly prohibits it. And
Mhm.
they didn't argue with me. They didn't try to change my mind. They just
Mhm.
very patiently listened to what I said, and then, moved on.
Yeah. So very respectful in a sense, yeah,
Yes,
of
and
your
patient.
beliefs.
So
Yeah. So who did you have in mind when you were writing this book? Was it skeptics, believers, researchers, or all of the above?
yes, all of the above,
All of the
really.
above. Yeah.
Because, for believers, I think a lot of times they have questions that they're afraid to raise because, they fear the type of reaction that they might get,
Mm-hmm.
or they don't really feel that they have a safe place to raise these questions.
Mm-hmm.
For skeptics, of course, especially, people who find that the Bible is threatening, that it actually has a hateful message, such as transgender or homosexuals, members of the gay and lesbian community,
Mm-hmm.
people of non-Christian faiths.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to provide them a way to see the Bible more as a tool, as something that can help them. That the more they understand about it, the more empowering it can actually be for them.
Mm-hmm.
And also for scholars, because I deeply respect the work of the scholars, and I read, a tremendous amount of the things that they've written and listen to.
Mm-hmm.
the influencers on the social media.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm hoping that, a lot of times this community, I think they don't really fully grapple with the importance of the work that they do. And many times I feel that they're writing for each other and
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
for religious or academic institutions. And a lot of times all of this wonderful work that they do is not really that accessible to the general public. And
Mm-hmm.
so hopefully I can, be in contact with them and inspire them and to see how it really does have some popular applications that need to be put forth.
Mm-hmm. And so the subtitle of your book is called The Bible Handbook for Rigorous Classroom Instruction. So more specifically about what kind of classroom, what kind of students were you um, looking to or writing for? What type of classroom?
Okay, so first of all, I just like to say that that subtitle is kind of tongue in cheek.
Oh, okay.
It's more of an attention getter than to actually use in the classroom. But
Gotcha.
since the book's been published, I've actually developed a series of lesson plans,
Oh, okay.
which I would make available to people, professors doing first year religious studies or biblical studies, because I actually do think that this could
Yeah,
be a
so it
tool.
worked out. And so how did you make the book both, very researched, deeply researched and also easy to read and practical for the reader to get through and comprehend?
Well, that's a key question because it's really been the work of more than 50 years of formal and informal studies.
Right.
And to to make it something that the general public could access and
Mhm.
find interesting, I started doing a series of posts on Facebook
Oh,
be-
okay.
because
Yeah.
I felt that was more of a way to present something in a readable and engaging form.
Mm-hmm.
So, get feedback from
Yeah,
from the my friends on Facebook.
directly. Mm-hmm. Very cool. Yeah, I feel like a lot of authors start out on a blog or Facebook because that's obviously everyone uses social media and you can focus on, specific points and something that's, easy to get through and then also directly being able to comment back simultaneously is really nice. So was it hard for you in the writing process to balance both of those, or did that come pretty easily as you started writing your book?
Well, it was both. It was actually pretty easy, and it became easier the more that I did it.
Yeah.
And it was a learning process, and I was actually encouraged to see how I could take these, the results of the scholarly research and
Hmm.
present it in a way that was accessible and I felt clear to
Hmm.
the reader.
Yeah.
And I
Okay.
had a biblical commentary that kind of guided me.
Hmm.
It was Isaac Asimov's commentary, and it was just so helpful because it lays out the historical periods in a very understanding way,
Hmm.
so that I could link the books that I was discussing to those particular times in history.
Okay, nice. So you mentioned that this book offers, a liberating approach to faith. What does that mean to you? And can you go further into that?
Well, I think a liberating approach to faith is something that helps us understand that the truth, whatever it may be, is not a threat. It's
Hmm.
actually it's actually something that empowers us, and I refer to that as liberating.
Hmm.
The less we understand, I think the more easily we're manipulated or led to believe things that are not necessarily true regarding faith and other matters.
Yeah.
And the more that we can anchor ourselves in science and historical events and the way that people engage with each other and behave, that is naturally liberating. I mean, it gives us a stronger sense of confidence
Mm-hmm.
in the
Yeah.
way that we approach the matters.
Yeah, yeah. And so so many readers wrestle with the parts of the Old Testament I think we talked about that can feel maybe a little harsh or confusing. How does your book help them navigate those questions? So I guess we're talking more about the skeptics.
Okay, so if it's important to understand when the book was written and who wrote it,
Mm-hmm.
what their audience is,
Mm-hmm.
and this what else was happening at the time. So you
Mm-hmm.
understand what they were addressing and what their purpose was in addressing that. And
Right.
once you have a clear idea of that, then you're better able to evaluate it and fit it into your own belief system or value system.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of going back to what you mentioned about the Bible being, a tool. I think people can relate to that and use it more like as a tool, like you mentioned. So you do also in your book touch on, difficult topics like genocide in scripture and contradictions between stories. What was your approach to discussing those type of issues in your book?
So once again, something that people may not realize is that many of these books, especially the books of the prophets and the Pentateuch, the first five books,
Mhm.
were revised and rewritten, and
Yeah.
it's interesting to see sometimes the scribes put their notes into it because they didn't have footnotes or quotation marks. So
Yeah, or comment sections.
right. So they put their comments right in there in the margin or sometimes inserting them right into the text.
Yeah.
So you get a sense that the books there's really no such thing as a biblical perspective. There's so many views and authors and points
Yeah.
involved. So, scholars help us separate out these layers. I refer to them as like peeling an onion.
Hmm.
as you as you separate these different pieces of work by different authors, you see their different perspectives, and
Hmm.
they're in dialogue with each other. They're in contradiction with each other at times.
Hmm.
So, understanding this process and that there are many different points of view, I think it encourages the reader to see, their own point of view values in all of this.
Yeah.
That they're actually invited to engage in this conversation and
Yeah.
apply it personally.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that perspective. Also, I feel like, some people might not feel that they have a perspective or they have to have a certain perspective. So having, taking words from scholars and, having it um, mean something to you and personally have your own perspective. I think that's important. So that's really nice that you mentioned that. So how do you hope your book changes the way people, think or talk about religion and perhaps the Bible?
Well, you see well-intentioned people, grappling with these ideas and
Yeah.
oftentimes not having the tools, not having the proper tools to help them in these
Yeah.
conversations, in these controversies. And I think my book and other media that present the same view will help inform these conversations, and they are pretty important conversations at the national level,
Yeah.
such things as abortion and the Ten Commandments in the classrooms, and
Mhm.
these are serious.
Big topics.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned creating a unified theory of the development of sacred texts. Can you explain what that means in simpler terms for our audience?
Okay, so as we talked about, finding out what the scholarship reveals about who wrote the text,
Hmm.
why they wrote it, what else was happening at the time, and what was being promoted. I mean, who would have been the winners, who would have been the losers if
Yeah.
if this were actually the view was actually adopted. And we see a pattern. You see the powerful voices of the prophets with a very clear message for social justice, and not only a just society, but even the welfare of the natural environment, being
Mm-hmm.
being dependent on achieving social justice.
Mm-hmm.
Then you see a pattern of this being um, subjugated, subverted, diluted, because there were interests that didn't like this prophetic message.
Mm-hmm.
And then we see a process of it being rediscovered. And so I think that's what we're doing as we're reading the books. We're seeing what these powerful messages are and how the other entities react to them.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of times we forget that the final editors of the Bible were, the political and religious elites.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're going to be very careful about how the message is phrased. And we
Yeah.
see this with the
Right.
Jewish theocratic state. And then we see it once again with the Christian, the message of the early Christian community as it engages with the Roman Empire.
Mm-hmm.
And we watch, these early communities begin to adapt and conform themselves to the Roman Empire, which
Mm-hmm.
its values that originally sought to subvert.
Mm-hmm. And so when you were researching and um you know in the writing process of your book, how did you come up with, or how did you decide, I guess, on um scholars and authors of certain books or certain perspectives? How did you go about including the ones that you included in your book and how that influenced your perspective?
I think it's so important to follow the science. And of course, in the scientific method, we don't start out with a conclusion. We
Yeah.
start out with the evidence and what the evidence shows and form our conclusions based on that.
Yeah.
So I sought out scholars who followed that method,
Okay.
and I incorporated their messages.
Yeah, yeah, okay. And so for researchers and academia reading this book, what do you hope that they take away from your work and your contribution?
So there are a couple of things. The way that you write and who
Hmm.
you write for and how you phrase things and even the publishers and the means of publishing that you choose are political messages.
Yeah, true.
And so what I'm hoping is that scholars will see um, the need to um, search out different ways to get their message out there in
Hmm.
the hope that they'll appreciate just how much their work is needed, to
Yeah.
inform the conversation.
Yeah. Was this a opinion or perspective you had before writing the book, or did this come from researching and further completing your book, as far as the attention to how books are written and the message that they're getting across?
Well, that's a good question, and it's like I think we sit on ideas and perspectives and questions in the back of our mind, and
Hmm.
as we write, they come to the fore. They become sharpened, and we appreciate
Yeah.
it. So how great a force those dynamics are that maybe we were holding in the background for a time.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. And so your book is titled Cutting Through the Babble. How did you come up with the title? Was that a working title, or did you come up with that after your book was completed? Um how did the idea of your title surface?
Well, one way that key ideas, they're pretty simple. And
Hmm.
we'll see certain ideas repeated time and time again in the Old Testament, for example.
Yeah.
And the best way to cover up and obscure and sideline a simple idea is to cover it with all kinds of fluff and
Yeah.
terms that can be taken more than one way. For idolatry, for example, people can have all kinds of ideas about what idolatry is. And
Yeah.
at times it's like, worshiping a golden calf or something like that. But the prophets are very clear that idolatry is oppressing the poor, the widow, the stranger. And they say it clearly time and time again. And it may take just three or four sentences in the book that bears their name. All the rest of it is
Hmm.
really an attempt to divert from that
Yeah.
core idea.
Yeah. How influential was the media in writing your book as far as mainstream media, um, news programs, broadcast, things like that, and also social media as far as certain information that you get or isn't, like cutting through the babble. How influential was that in writing your book, if anything?
I think the influencers on social media, I rely on them to confirm. I mean, a lot of what they're saying, it confirms what I'm saying. It doesn't conflict. I see how we complement each other.
Yeah.
The same things with other media like Wikipedia or even AI. I mean, you can pick up a lot of information and ideas by going to them.
Hmm.
And I'm finding if you go to Wikipedia and read about a certain book, pretty much we correspond, we correlate, in the things that we're saying. So it affirms what I'm saying. And what I'm doing is trying to take this general consensus, which is also backed up by the scholarly research,
Hmm.
and trying to make it presentable to the general public in an informative and humorous way.
Yeah. And so your book can, be seen to be speaking to faith-driven readers and those who question organized religion. Um, in your book, do you aim to, bring those two audiences together or just to, understand each other's perspective? How did you go about addressing both of those groups and linking them together or maybe bringing them together after reading it?
That's a huge task that you're talking
Yeah, it is.
about, to bring together all of these disparate elements. And like I'm hoping that they will converge, to develop. I mean, that's how we develop a
Yeah.
consensus, is
Yeah.
being, exposed to the facts, and
Right. Yeah.
which help us form our opinions and our discussions.
Yeah. 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 Maybe not bring together completely, but, maybe just keep it, agree to disagree, but also understand each other's perspective. I feel like there's not a lot of like understanding each other's perspectives in the world sometimes. So I feel like your book also can help, people have a more level-headed sense of where everyone people are coming from as far as that's what I meant by that. Um,
Well, I like your phrase, agree to disagree, because
yeah.
that's what we have to do a long time. Just like my
Yeah.
friend back in college agreed to disagree with my
Right.
perspective.
In a
Um,
respectable way, correct. Yeah.
right. And I'm having to do that with my friends now, because I'm a member of a church, not a super conservative church, but still one in which people place a high premium on biblical, their biblical studies, and it's
Right.
important
Yeah.
to faith. And not all of them are ready to jump onto, my everything I say in my book.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah. So you were a Methodist, correct? And then you you're more Catholic now, correct?
well, actually, my current church is a Congregationalist church, which I
Okay.
I find is kind of a good blend of the,
Balance.
good balance. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. And how long have you been going to that church? Or how long have you been?
So
Yeah.
I've been a member of that church for it'll be 7 years now. So a
Okay.
considerable
Nice.
amount of time. And the
Okay.
one thing I really like about my current church is that They say that creeds are testimonies, not tests.
Mm,
That's one of the things that attracts me to them.
yeah. So you also mention science, and you also address the relationship between science and scripture. What's your perspective on how the two can coexist?
So the my perspective on this, and one thing I'd like to propose before we actually get into this is
Yeah.
I say in my book that I hope no one can tell what I actually believe, from reading my book, because
Right, yeah.
it's about what the authors believed and put forth.
Mm-hmm.
But of course it does, I do have a faith.
Yeah, it's hard not to weave that in there.
It does
Yeah.
influence my perspective. And I see, one of the things that, the idea of a supernatural and a natural reality, it's really a pagan idea. I mean, it's a Greek idea. It came
Mhm.
from Plato. And
Yeah,
I don't think it's at all essential to the Christian faith or any other faith. And I
right.
don't see that anything that humans can experience is outside of the realm of science, because that's what science does. It looks at experiences and phenomena and analyzes them. It really describes the laws of science, what it's observing.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't see any conflict at all. I mean, I pray to the Holy Spirit, the, creator of the universe and of the rules by which it operates.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm hoping people can see and maybe appreciate that there's no necessary division or distinction between faith and
Mm-hmm.
science.
Yeah, yeah. And so what makes your book unique as far as speaking to the topics of this book, and what do you think your perspective is, and how it brings another perspective, I guess, to the talks about like this topic?
So I mean, you deal with a lot of authors, you've examined a lot of books. I don't know any other book that attempts to do what I'm doing, to
Yeah.
to give this kind of analysis of each book of the Bible, and also of, some of the principles by which, the books are put together and what they're meant to do.
Mm-hmm.
So in that sense, I think I believe my book is unique.
Yeah. Yeah. And so how do you see your book contributing to the larger conversation about faith and understanding in today's society?
So what I'm hoping is people discover it, and that's the next big phase I'm into, is, marketing and promotion
Mm-hmm.
on it. But
Yeah.
as people discover it, they will find it a useful tool, like
Mm-hmm.
the scholars and academic professors that I was talking about, being able to
Yeah.
find it helpful in some way. Um, so that's one of the things I'm hoping, is that people can use it as a tool. But
Mm-hmm.
so just the general perspective, that the way that you approach scripture and understand it as not just as something that is used, but something that was used, and
Mm-hmm.
how it was used, and learn from that, because
Mm-hmm.
there's never been a revolution that hasn't been undone.
Mm-hmm.
And, we're in the 250th year of our own American Revolution. And, as we learn the principles by which, revolutions are formed, they take off, they're countered and subverted and eventually undone. Hopefully, we can grab some useful lessons from that and maybe influence, our own trajectory in history.
Yeah. And so how does it feel being an author, writing a book like this? Is this a type of book that you wish that you had when you were, a younger adult or growing up, that you wish that people could have when they're discovering their faith and trying to understand scripture and things like that?
If I could have appreciated it, I don't know,
You
thinking of
don't know
myself
now.
thinking of myself as a 17-year-old dealing with the things I was dealing with. I don't.
Probably wouldn't pick it up.
I joke with people, and it's a big book.
Oh, is it?
It's 5 pounds.
Oh my gosh.
I wish I had a copy I could hold up and just show it. But I joke with people, and I say, well, if you don't find it usable in any other way, at least you can use it for self-defense. But
Or or just read sections that you are particularly interested in is always a good idea too, you know?
I do advise people to
Yeah.
do that because I think many people are afraid of the book, actually, that it's somehow a threat to their faith. And
Mm.
if you jump into a big idea like, the books of the Bible are not literally true, that's going to turn you off, from reading it if you find that threatening.
Mm.
So, I tell people, you don't have to read it cover to cover. As you were suggesting, open it up to the table of contents, look at something that you find interesting, that you'd like to know more about, and
Yeah. Yeah.
start there. Start
Hmm.
with little pieces rather than the big idea.
Yeah, exactly. So when did you start writing this book?
So, as I mentioned, it's been the work of 50 years. And when
Mhm.
did I actually start writing it? It was
Right.
with 6 years ago with the Facebook post. So
Okay.
it was only like a year and a half ago that I started trying to figure out how I could take these Facebook posts and put them into a book format, and
Hmm.
then how was I going to get it published and available
Hmm.
to the public?
Yeah. And how did it feel having it completed, the manuscript completed, and then also having your physical, tangible book, in your hands? How did both of those things feel when it was finally completed?
Oh, it's a great feeling,
Yeah.
that it's something that you produced, you're proud of it, and
Hmm.
you show it to your friends, and they're impressed. They know a real author now, and I think
Yeah.
that
It's
it,
exciting.
so if you feel like it's valuable and it turned out well, I mean, people like the way it looks. They like the way that, although it's thick, you open it up and there is more pictures than there is print, you know.
Hmm.
Um, I think people find that inviting.
Yeah. And so, can you share with us what your writing experience was like over the years, or any moments from your writing experience that stuck out for you?
So the writing process, I mean, it's choosing. I mean, I had literally books, pages and pages of notes from over the years,
Hmm.
and going over these and pulling out, just concise elements. And this book is over 600 pages long, so you think, how could you
Oh,
call that concise in any way?
yeah.
Well, it's a big conflation from everything that I had going into it.
Yeah.
So it's rewarding when you feel that it's finally coming together.
Hmm.
You feel that you've chosen the most important parts. You haven't left anything out that needs to be there,
Hmm.
and it's becoming more concise and
Hmm.
more like the form that you want it to have.
Hmm. Is
So,
there a part of your book that you like the most, or that's most interesting to you, or that was memorable for you to write as an author?
I definitely prefer the New Testament section
Hmm.
because it was written in a much shorter period of time. I feel like it wasn't written by a whole bunch of authors like the Old Testament.
Hmm.
We can pretty much say which individual wrote, this particular part,
Yeah.
in
It's
time.
easier for you as as a working author to
Right.
rummage through
So
all
so
that.
you take, for example, the Gospel of Luke, and you have the Gospel and the Acts of the Apostles, and you're only dealing with one author, Luke. And so you have a pretty good idea of his time frame,
Hmm.
what he was up against, what he needed to say, and how he said it. And it's
Hmm.
just when all that comes together, and you feel that, like, now we have a good picture, a
Hmm.
picture that makes sense.
Hmm. And so in the writing process, did you have any difficulties in writing? Did anything surprise you most about your writing process besides just bringing all the research together?
So let me think about that. The process itself. Um, I can't think of anything that was really surprising other
Hmm.
than just the general relief, when
Hmm.
I found a pattern, I guess.
Hmm.
That
Okay.
that as I worked on the books, I developed a pattern, of being able to put the author's production into a context.
Hmm.
And once I began looking for that, it just made it easier to go along because I was expecting it,
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
happened consistently.
Hmm. And so your book is nonfiction, but did you did you have some sort of writing style that you wanted to um allude to, or did that happen naturally? You mentioned humor a little bit. How is it finding your voice as an author, even though these are, it's research based? There's obviously ties of a style going on. How did you come up with your writing style as an author?
So I didn't really think that much about it.
Yeah,
I kind of just like
it happened naturally.
did what felt good.
Yeah.
One of the first people to read it characterized my style,
Oh,
and
okay.
he said it was radical zine R. Crumb style, and I had no idea what that meant.
Don't
And
know what that
as,
means either.
as, as I looked into it, I saw that's exactly what I'm trying to do, like
Okay.
bypass the gatekeepers, with the scholarly research that requires all the footnotes and approval by the institution or the publication that's going to present it, and just
Yeah.
all the things that as we call them gatekeepers, keep things from getting in or out.
Yeah.
And so, mine is designed to bypass all these gatekeepers.
Hmm.
And that's what style made sense to me. What he said made a lot of sense, and I found it gratifying that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. And so since it's been released, have you had any feedback or nice feedback or reviews for your book?
So the first one, like I told you, my friend that just told me about my style. I mean,
Hmm.
that was probably,
Eye-opening.
yeah. And
Yeah.
And the rest, only a couple people, and I have to get on my friends about this. Only a couple people have posted on Amazon.
Hmm.
There were very positive reviews about, as I was hoping this is a
Your
useful tool
goals. Hmm.
for understanding the scriptures.
Hmm.
So, and then, just other friends. I think the greatest comment I've gotten is it's funny.
Oh,
And,
that's
and
awesome.
I was hoping for that, because I think
Yeah,
humor releases tension and helps
it
us get
does. Yeah.
into the text.
Yeah. So what advice would you give to a writer working on his or her first book?
So I think it's so important to believe in your message.
Hmm.
Feel that you have something important to say that
Hmm.
you need to hear.
Yeah.
If it and then just start writing, and I think it will pretty much write itself.
Hmm.
There
True.
are going to be you'll have blocks, and there'll be you'll be puzzling about how's the best way to phrase it, but
Yeah.
the drive is getting that message out there.
Hmm. Yeah. And so when you were writing, did you have a sense of, what kind of impact your book could have on the topic, today, and how, marketing will go as far as getting your book out there? How much marketing has been around your book so far? And it has that part been fun for you?
the marketing part, it's a learning experience. I've never done anything
Yeah.
like this before. It's exhausting. At
Yeah.
times it's frustrating. It's getting to know social media that I'm not used to. It's
Yeah.
reaching out to bookstores and see if I can do book talks.
Hmm.
Um, so there's just it's I guess like all learning
It's a learning
processes,
curve.
it's
Yeah.
stressful, but
Yeah.
hopefully the end result will be make it all worthwhile.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, do you have any personal or professional goals, book goals for this year for 2026 with your book?
So for this book, I would like to do more presentations, actually start locally, go with the independent booksellers that I know and
Hmm.
approach them and work with my friends, to get them to do those reviews and
Hmm.
tell their friends about it, help me with this.
Yeah.
And I also have a second book. It's the one that I told you, I had published earlier, and
Hmm.
I looked it over and, I made some revisions, but basically, I feel like it's good to go out again. So
Okay.
I'll be looking at the second book.
That one. And so what's that one? What's the topic of that one? Is it a religious toned book or what's that one about?
It's more of a memoir, and it's called
Oh,
the other
okay.
side. It's called the other side of the dollar, and it's more a book about faith. In the first book, I talk about the facts.
Hmm.
This is, and now it's how over the course of my lifetime I've used what my experiences and what I've learned to develop my own faith perspective.
Hmm. Nice. I love that. How is that writing the memoir versus cutting through the babble?
Well, life is has a lot in it. And you think back over all of your experiences, and once again, you're in that process of what's important. How can I best, tell this story? What
Hmm.
do I need to include? What can be left out? And what is it? What do I feel that the lessons I've learned what are the lessons I've learned in my life? How can I share those?
Hmm.
It's very different, I think, than looking at the work of others,
Hmm.
helping people understand that,
Yeah.
helping people understand something as complex as an individual.
Yeah, yeah, that's so true. So what is for readers that are listeners that are, hearing about your book and you as an author, what is one key insight or feeling you hope that readers take away after reading your book, Cutting Through the Babble?
Well, I think we've touched on this before, and that we will never regret learning more about the truth. The-
Hmm.
uh, it may seem threatening at first, but the more we learn, the more empowered we are. And
Hmm.
I think that's
That's
that's really
great.
what I hope people would take away.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Laffey, for being here today. Is there anything else that you would like to mention before we go?
No, thank you, Emma. I
Yeah, of course.
appreciate this opportunity, and it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much. So if you would like to purchase Mr. Laffey's book, you can head to xlibris.com and purchase it through there. You also can purchase it through Amazon or Barnes& and Noble. And if you do, please leave him a review. I know he would like that. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.